and people would come in and ask me like, what's wrong? And I'm like, I'm alive. I'm okay. I think the first film I remember watching, although it's not, I haven't had time to call my parents to actually check, I think it's Lion King. I do remember feeling like I wanted to go on the same adventure that Simba had. I wanted to beat all the Mufasas and all the hyenas in it. I just remember that being a very visceral feeling inside me. My main film that I always reference back to when I'm thinking like what made me want to act or what made me think that that would be a cool job to do was, do you know a film called Rudy? It's a little American film about a real football player. He was like really little and he wasn't very good in school, but his dream was to go to Notre Dame and play football and study there. It's a really simple film, but the process he went on to actually achieve it was sort of so inspiring. And by the end of the film, spoiler alert, he manages to get onto the pitch for 10 seconds at the end of his last year and just make one run for the ball. But his name went down on the wall. And I just felt like that was such a cool, like I always remember it being like, well, that's like, you only need to get on the pitch for 10 seconds for it to count. I'm gonna go with the recent one because it's a really difficult question to answer, but like the recent scene that has stuck with me for a very long time is the opening scene in Trial of the Chicago 7. You know the scene with Joseph Gordon-Levitt when he's speaking to the Attorney General. I mean, anything that Aaron Sorkin writes in general is like great. But that scene, the way that it kind of flows back and forth and reaches like such a core question at the center of it. There's a line in it that's, what do you think of the people who are rioting? And Joseph goes, I think they're vulgar, chaotic, unpragmatic, disorganized, but none of that is indictable. And then the Attorney General goes, well, imagine how impressed I'll be when you get an indictment. And it's just like those flips happen all the way throughout the scene. I don't know, it just really stuck with me. It feels like music. I've got this shackle from the last stunt that I did on a show that I was doing last year. I was in South Africa shooting for like a whole year, and I'd made a really big point and commitment of doing all the stunts in the show. And we trained for like 8-10 hours a day for like 6 months before it. And then the sort of, as we were doing the stunts, they kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And I never told anyone that I was nervous about it. Cause like if you flinch, then they take you out of the stunt. And like we had gone so far with it that I was like, well, I might as well, you know what I'm saying? Like in for a penny, in for a pound. And the whole time it kept getting like scarier and scarier, and everything kept getting more injured and more injured and more injured. By the time we did the last stunt, I didn't realize it was the last stunt till after it happened. It was like a 20-foot jump on a wire across a pool, and there was like a kick midair. And I landed, and they said cut. And then the guy came over to take the shackles and the wires off of my harness, and he left one of the shackles on there. And when I got back to the tent, I remember taking the shackle off and like realizing that was the last time that I had to do a stunt on the show. And I just started sobbing like a little boy, man. I was there for like 20 minutes just going like, oh! And people would come in and ask me like, what's wrong? And I'm like, I'm alive. I'm okay. I called like my mom and dad and I was like, I did it. They were like, did what? I was like, survived. And I kept the shackle and I made like I made a piece of jewelry out of it. I made a chain and I take it with me everywhere. Full Monty. Full Monty is one of my favorite films of all time. I can't even count how many times I watched it. We used to rent it like every single weekend to watch it together as a family, like when it was still like cassette tapes. They don't make films like that anymore. You know what I'm saying? Like films that are that effortlessly good whilst also being effortlessly funny. Yeah, man, it's just a really great film. Like my mum's side of the family is from Barnsley, so it also just reminds me of like home and stuff. Wanted. You know the McAvoy film? There's one song in there by Danny Elfman that just always rings in my head. Even today when I thought about it, I was like, and I started singing it. I just love that soundtrack. It's a toss-up between Bond and Moneypenny.
Bond. James Bond.
And like Ross and Rachel. Because one version is like you'd have the coolest life. And then the other version is you would have extreme amounts of love in your life, you know, and you'd just be like warm and I can proper imagine like they'd give you like cuddly pajamas and and probably like hug you in the evenings and stuff. Maybe all four, you know what I'm saying? Who knows? Maybe I can have two of both. It's also really tricky, but I'd say if I had to live in one mood of a director, it'd be Florian Zeller. And I know he's a playwright as well, but just like the way that people speak in his plays and his films is the way I wish people spoke in real life. You know what I mean? Like I wish everything that everyone said could be as poetic as what Florian says. All of them. Now, on a level like Taxi Driver.
You talking to me?
Anytime somebody brings up Taxi Driver, I'm like, that bit, yeah, that bit's great.